While others passed by without noticing the tied puppy, a poor farmer stopped, and what happened next left the whole town speechless. A cold wind swept through the narrow dirt road just past sundown, carrying the last remnants of a fading day across the silent farmland. Hidden behind the tall grasses and the shadows cast by an old sagging fence, a German shepherd puppy lay tied to a tree. His paws trembled slightly as he struggled against the coarse rope that chafed his tender neck. He had no name, no home, and nothing but the dim glow of a moonless sky above him. Yet, in the depths of his eyes, a fierce spark of determination refused to die. Even when everything seemed lost, that tiny glimmer of hope kept him from giving in to despair. The puppy's fur, mostly black with classic tan markings along his legs and muzzle, was matted with dried mud. A small cut on his left ear had scabbed over, hinting at a past altercation or perhaps the careless swat of someone who never truly cared for him. His ribs were faintly visible beneath his coat, betraying days, if not weeks, of hunger and neglect. In the distance, faint thunder rolled across the sky, promising rain. The puppy's ears twitched at every sound, alert to any chance that help might come. But after too many nights alone, he had learned the harsh reality of being abandoned. Hope could be cruel, yet it was all he had left. On the other side of that old fence, the farmland spread out toward a modest ranch house with white walls, chipped paint, and a single porch light. Inside lived an elderly man named Henry Armand and his teenage granddaughter, Lily, who'd come to stay with him for the summer. Henry had spent his entire life on this land, toiling at dawn and resting at sunset, his back bent from years of work, but his spirit unbroken. Though the ranch was far from prosperous, he always said that generosity cost nothing. Lily, a quiet girl of 15 with an unending love for animals, had grown used to the calming rhythms of farm life, feeding the horses, tending the garden, and watching fireflies dance along the fields at twilight. That evening, Lily stood by the kitchen window, peering out at the gathering clouds. She had an unsettling feeling, as though something was wrong just beyond the pasture where their land ended. Her grandfather had taught her to trust her instincts, so she pressed her nose against the glass, scanning the faint silhouettes of trees. The sky flickered with lightning in the far distance. It was then that Lily thought she saw movement, something small near the fence line. She could not be sure, but an unexplainable pang in her chest urged her to investigate. Meanwhile, the puppy raised his muzzle toward the sky. A single drop of rain landed between his ears. The rumble of thunder grew louder, and a brisk wind whistled through the branches above him. He tried to shrink into the shadow of the tree trunk, hoping to shield himself from what promised to be a downpour. His leash, however, was too short, allowing him no real refuge from the elements. Still, he refused to lie down in defeat. He stood on wobbling legs, tail tucked, eyes scanning the horizon in case someone, anyone, might arrive. It was around that time that Lily convinced Henry to let her check the boundary fence. She couldn't articulate why she felt compelled to go, only that a powerful intuition pulled at her heart. Henry, although puzzled, fetched a flashlight and insisted on accompanying her. There were stray dogs in the countryside sometimes, rummaging for food or trailing behind passing cars, but it was rare for them to linger in one place, especially near the property line. Lily stepped out onto the porch, feeling a gust of wind whip her long hair around her face. The flashlight's beam cut through the darkness as she set off, guided by the murmur of thunder and the heightened sense that something out there needed her. The puppy heard the soft crunch of boots on gravel before he saw the beam of light. In an instant, his survival instincts flared. He tried to bark a warning, but what emerged was a weak, raspy whimper. Alarmed by his own vulnerability, he stepped back as far as the rope would allow, breath quickening. The light grew closer, revealing two figures, an older man wearing a weathered jacket and a young girl with keen, compassionate eyes. Lily caught her breath when the flashlight illuminated the puppy's trembling frame. She gasped, rushing forward despite Henry's cautionary hand on her shoulder. The sight of the rope around the pup's neck enraged her. She could not fathom who would do such a thing, who would abandon and restrain a helpless creature, leaving it to face the storm alone. Her pulse pounded with indignation. "Poor thing," she whispered, kneeling in the wet grass. The puppy flinched, uncertain whether these strangers were friends or the next threat. Yet Lily's voice held a gentleness he had never known. She moved slowly, giving him space, shining the flashlight just enough to see his injuries without blinding him. "We'll help you," she promised, words quivering with empathy. Henry, crouching beside his granddaughter, examined the rope's knot. He could see the puppy's fur rubbed raw beneath it. With steady hands, he pulled a pocket knife from his jacket and cut through the coarse material. The dog stumbled free, nearly collapsing into Lily's lap. She let the flashlight fall to the ground and cradled the puppy in her arms, tears threatening to spill down her cheeks at how fragile he felt. His body was so light, as though he had been starved of both food and affection. The sky opened up in that moment, releasing a torrent of rain. Thunder boomed and wind whipped the treetops. Henry placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. "We have to get him inside," he said, raising his voice to be heard over the gale. Lily nodded, pressing the puppy close. She could feel his heart racing. Each tremor in his small body tore at her, fueling her resolve to keep him safe. Carrying the puppy back across the field, they navigated mud that sucked at their boots and puddles that glinted under sporadic flashes of lightning. By the time they reached the porch, Lily's clothes were soaked through, and the puppy shivered violently. The overhead light revealed just how dire his condition was: the cut on his ear, the protruding ribs, and the dull sheen of his eyes. Henry's expression hardened with concern. Inside the ranch house, Lily cleared a spot near the wood stove, placing soft towels and an old blanket on the floor. As the puppy sank into this makeshift bed, his body sagged in exhaustion, though his eyes never lost that faint spark of hope. Lily fetched a bowl of warm water to clean his wounds, and Henry rummaged through the cupboard for some leftover stew broth that might tempt the puppy to eat. The crackle of the fire in the stove filled the otherwise silent room, providing warmth against the storm raging outside. Carefully, Lily dabbed around the scabbed ear with a clean cloth. The puppy whined, but his gaze remained on her, uncertain yet curious. His life had been filled with fear, and the kindness radiating from Lily was almost bewildering to him. He had grown accustomed to cruelty, but now she offered something else entirely: compassion. Each gentle pat reassured him that maybe, for the first time, he was safe. Henry placed a shallow dish of broth on the floor, kneeling down to coax the puppy into tasting it. "Go on, fella," he murmured. "It's yours." The puppy sniffed the bowl, ears perked in hesitation before lapping timidly at the liquid. When the savory taste touched his tongue, he drank more eagerly, revitalized by the warmth and the sudden realization that no hand here would strike him. Lily watched with relief blossoming in her chest. Something about this pup called to her sense of justice. He was a living testament to resilience, having endured so much yet never fully surrendering. She brushed a damp strand of hair behind her ear. "What happens when the storm passes?" she asked softly, glancing at her grandfather. Henry sighed. "First, we make sure he's going to live. Then we figure out who left him there if we can. But tonight we give him a chance." Lightning flashed through the window, illuminating the simple living room with a stark electric glow. The puppy's eyes flashed with it, reflecting both the fear of the storm and a quiet acceptance of his new surroundings. Outside, the wind howled, and the rope that had once bound him lay discarded somewhere in the dark. Inside, however, hope flickered to life more brightly than ever. Lily stroked his ears and whispered, You're safe now." The puppy closed his eyes, inching closer to her hand, as though to confirm that this solace was real. He was too exhausted to stand, yet the relief he felt was undeniable. In that moment, the horrors of being tied to a tree, abandoned, and left to face the storm alone began to recede. A tentative bond formed between him and the girl who refused to leave him behind. She was his harbor in the tempest, and he clung to that promise as tightly as his frayed spirit would allow. The thunder rumbled again, but this time it felt distant, more like a lullaby than a threat. Henry placed another log into the stove, its firelight dancing across the floor in golden ripples. Lily set a pillow beside the puppy, gently resting his head on it. "He's going to need a name," she said, glancing up at Henry. The old man nodded. "Yes, he will. Let's see how he fares tonight. Then we'll decide." For the first time in what felt like ages, the German Shepherd puppy closed his eyes without fear. The relentless storm outside might have been fierce, but inside the small ranch house, a quiet warmth enveloped him. He didn't know where tomorrow would lead, or whether the dark memories of hunger and neglect would fade, but he did know one thing: he was no longer alone, and the spark of hope in his chest had finally found a place to grow. Morning arrived softly at the ranch. Long rays of sunlight spilled over the windowsill and onto the spot where the puppy still slept, curled into a tight ball on Lily's old blanket. His breathing had steadied during the night, but every now and then, his body quivered as though fending off the memory of being tied to that tree. In his half-slumber, he sensed the warmth of the fire's embers and the gentle hush of voices nearby. He didn't yet know these people, but he felt their kindness even through the haze of lingering fear. Henry was the first to rise, slipping quietly into the living room to check on their unexpected guest. The puppy lifted his head, ears twitching at the soft shuffle of boots against floorboards. Though there was uncertainty in his gaze, he did not cower. Henry crouched beside him, murmuring in a gentle tone, "You've been through a rough patch, but you'll see better days here." He slowly extended a hand, letting the pup sniff his calloused fingers. After a few seconds, the puppy cautiously nudged Henry's palm, a timid welcome. It was a humble farmhouse, furnished with worn sofas and modest wooden chairs that had survived decades of use. The walls were adorned with pictures of Lily's parents and grandparents, black and white reminders of a simpler era. Despite the home's simple comforts, Henry wondered how he could manage another mouth to feed. His retirement savings were modest, and Lily had only come to stay for the summer. Still, as he watched the German Shepherd puppy muster the energy to stand on shaky legs, he felt a renewed resolve. There was no question of turning his back on the animal. Lily emerged from the hallway, hair tousled from sleep, her eyes lighting up the moment she saw the puppy alert. "He made it through the night," she whispered, kneeling beside Henry. The puppy trembled slightly when she touched his flank, but her calm demeanor quickly soothed him. She looked at Henry. "I want to clean that cut on his ear again. Maybe we can use some of the salve we keep for the horses." Henry nodded. "Good idea. We'll patch him up, then maybe see if he'll eat something with a little more substance. The broth helped, but he needs real food." Before the chores could begin, Lily carefully picked the puppy up and carried him to the kitchen. She set him down on a folded towel by the sink, where the morning sun streamed through the window. The pup blinked at the sudden brightness, nose twitching at the smell of soap and fresh coffee. He didn't struggle in Lily's arms, only letting out a faint whine when she reached his injured ear. "Easy, boy," she said softly, rinsing a cloth in warm water. "This might sting a little." As she patted the crusted wound, the puppy tensed but did not snap. His trust, though delicate, seemed to grow with every gentle touch. Lily marveled at the resolve in his eyes, Those dark orbs glimmered with equal parts caution and determination. It was as if he, too, was testing whether these strangers' intentions were genuine. Henry heated up some leftover scraps of beef, chopping them into small pieces. "Let's see if he'll manage some of this," he suggested. Placing the dish near Lily's feet, he watched as the puppy's nostrils flared at the scent. Tentative at first, the pup lowered his head and licked one morsel. The taste must have awakened his appetite, for soon he devoured the rest, wagging his tail in a slow but hopeful motion. A sense of relief filled the kitchen. Lily stood, rinsing her hands. "Grandpa," she said, turning around, "we can't just call him Pup. He needs a name." Henry paused. Outside the window, a gentle breeze stirred the tall grass. He recalled how helpless the dog had looked under that tree and how surprising it was that even then, the pup never lost the will to stand. "Something that speaks to his strength," Henry mused. "He's a fighter, that's for sure." They tossed around ideas for a few minutes. "Duke," Lily proposed at one point. Henry tilted his head, considering. Then, Lily's gaze dropped to the dog's paws. "But maybe something that reminds us of how we found him, still believing someone would come." She bit her lip, thinking. "Hope," she said at last. "But that's usually a girl's name." Henry chuckled. "Hope? Or maybe Chance, because he's getting a second chance at life." The puppy's ears perked at the sound, as though the word itself carried promise. "Chance," Lily repeated, smiling. "Yes, that fits him." She bent down, holding her hand out. "Welcome home, Chance." A soft bark seemed to escape the dog's throat, and Lily laughed, convinced that he was trying to respond. The morning chores beckoned. Henry gathered his tools and headed toward the barn, calling over his shoulder for Lily to meet him after feeding the horses. She stayed behind a few extra minutes, wanting to make sure Chance was settled. She carried him to the living room, where the wood stove's warmth lingered. After laying an old blanket on the floor, she set Chance down gently. "I'll be back soon," she promised. Her voice was bright, yet a hint of worry trembled beneath it. Chance blinked, then placed his muzzle on his paws, still exhausted despite the nourishing meal. Lily smiled at him one last time before hurrying out, letting the screen door bang shut behind her. For a while, the house was still. Chance drifted in and out of a light doze, lulled by the fading embers' warmth. His dreams were filled with fleeting images of open fields, the smell of fresh hay, and occasionally the haunting memory of a tight rope around his neck. But each time he stirred awake, he found himself in a quiet, safe room, the blanket's softness replacing the cold mud he'd once slept on. Eventually, he gathered the courage to rise. Though his legs shook under his weight, he took a few tentative steps across the wooden floor, sniffing at furniture legs and the corners of chairs. A timid curiosity guided him, urging him to explore this place that felt both foreign and welcoming. By the time he reached the doorway to the small front porch, he could see a sliver of the farmland, a stretch of green broken up by a rutted dirt path, the old fence in the distance, and further beyond, a line of trees that swayed in the light breeze. Outside, Lily worked alongside Henry, feeding the horses and checking their hooves. At times, she glanced toward the house as though expecting to see Chance at the window. When she noticed the puppy's silhouette at the threshold, her heart fluttered. "Grandpa, look," she whispered. Henry turned, resting his pitchfork against the fence. "Well, I'll be," he muttered. "Seems he's got the spirit to move about already." "Mind if I bring him outside for a bit?" Lily asked, excitement brightening her eyes. Henry nodded. "Just take it slow. Let him find his legs." She hurried back inside, greeting the pup with a cheerful smile. "Want to see a bit more of your new home?" she asked. Chance's tail gave a small wag. Carefully, Lily scooped him up, mindful of his wounds. Stepping onto the porch, she felt the warmth of the sun on her shoulders, contrasting sharply with the storm of the previous night. The day was beautiful, alive with singing birds and the rustle of crops in the distance. When Lily set Chance on the ground, he took a moment to sniff the porch planks before stepping onto the dirt. Here the scents were abundant: fresh grass, tilled earth, even a whiff of the horses not far away. He seemed overwhelmed, but not frightened. A gentle breeze ruffled his ears, and for a second he closed his eyes as though savoring a freedom he'd never known. Henry joined them, hooking his thumbs into his suspenders. "Little fella will need a checkup," he remarked. "I know a traveling vet who comes by every couple of weeks. Might take a while, but that's better than nothing." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "He looks underweight, and that ear wound might get infected if not treated properly. But at least he's standing on his own." Chance tested the solidity of the earth beneath his paws, taking a tentative step forward. Then another. Lily gently guided him away from uneven ground, leading him to a patch of grass where it was safer to walk. Step by step, the puppy explored, though he still limped slightly. "He's a brave one," Henry observed softly, unable to hide the admiration in his gaze. "I can't stand the thought of someone leaving him like that," Lily murmured. "What if he hadn't cried out when we passed? Or what if we hadn't gone to check?" The question lingered, heavy with what-ifs. Henry placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We can't change people's cruelty, but we can decide how we respond. He's safe now, and that's what matters." As they spoke, a distant rumble of an engine interrupted the calm. A dusty pickup truck appeared on the gravel road leading to the ranch. Lily tensed, fearing it might be whoever had left Chance behind. Henry signaled for her to stay calm. The vehicle rolled to a stop in front of the house, and a middle-aged woman in a faded denim jacket climbed out. Henry raised a hand in greeting. "Morning, Deborah," he called. The newcomer was a local acquaintance who sometimes traded eggs and produce with Henry. "Heard a rumor you rescued a pup," she said, taking off her sunglasses. Her eyes dropped to Chance. "That him?" Henry nodded, gently stroking the puppy's side. "Ain't every day we find a dog tied up like that," Deborah commented, a note of disgust in her voice. "You planning on keeping him?" Henry and Lily exchanged a glance. In truth, they hadn't fully discussed it. Lily looked pleadingly at her grandfather. "We have to," she whispered. "I can help with his food and vet bills. I'll make sure he's not a burden." Henry sighed, but his eyes glowed with a gentle warmth. "He's already part of this place," he replied, voice firm. "No sense turning him away now." Deborah nodded approvingly. "If you need anything, food, supplies, let me know. Some folks around here might know who did this, but it's tough to pin blame unless they brag about it." She regarded Chance with a sympathetic look, then turned back to her truck. "Better get going. Got errands in town. See you soon." With that, she drove off, leaving a trail of dust in her wake. Lily exhaled slowly, relief blossoming across her face. She set her hand on Chance's head. "Looks like you're staying, buddy." Henry glanced at the old barn, half listening to the rustle of wind in the fields. "We'll make it work. Now that he has a name, Chance, he's ours, for as long as he wants to stay." The puppy gazed up at them, his posture still weary, but his spirit undeniably present. In that moment, it felt as though the farm itself breathed more vibrantly around them. The tractor in the distance, the horses nuzzling flakes of hay, the sun that rose higher in the sky, all bore witness to the quiet beginning of a life reborn. Chance stood at the threshold of a new existence woven into a family that had discovered him in his darkest hour. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew he wasn't alone. Hope, once just a distant flicker, now glowed like a steadfast lantern lighting his path forward. Chance slept more soundly that night, nestled in a soft nest of blankets Lily had arranged by the wood stove. The simple act of providing him a warm spot and a gentle hand was already changing him. Each time Lily passed by, she glimpsed the faint rise and fall of his chest, reassured he was breathing without pain. At dawn, she was the first to slip into the living room, drawn by an excited desire to see him awake in the day's early light. When she knelt beside the blankets, she found him watching her through half-lidded eyes, ears pricked in a silent greeting. "I'll get us both some breakfast," she whispered, smiling. Though he couldn't possibly understand her words, Chance wagged his tail in a small show of trust. The previous afternoon's events had already made it feel as though he'd been part of their little farmhouse forever. In the kitchen, she filled a tin bowl with a bit of milk stirred into warm oatmeal, hoping it would be gentle on his stomach. Henry had insisted they not overload the pup's system yet, especially given his recent ordeal. Lily also saved a tiny sliver of fresh bacon as a treat, remembering how eagerly Chance had devoured the scraps of beef. Outside, the sky was crisp and pale, with the golden hue of early morning stretching over the fields. She could hear the horses neighing, nudging for their own breakfast. When she returned to Chance's makeshift bed, he rose carefully, still limping. Though he was weak, Lily noticed how he tried to stand tall in his own awkward way. She placed the bowl on the floor and watched him explore the oatmeal. After a few tentative sniffs, his tongue lapped at it, and soon he devoured every bite. He even gave a little sneeze of surprise at the warm mush, then gazed at Lily as if to ask for more. "Slowly, boy," she laughed, patting his flank. "We've got to ease you into this." She fished out the bacon sliver from her pocket and held it between her fingers. His nose twitched rapidly, and with a careful nibble he took the treat and swallowed it gratefully. The delight in his eyes made Lily's chest tighten with empathy. She had always been drawn to animals, but there was something about Chance's quiet determination that tugged at her more deeply than any stray she'd encountered. As she finished feeding him, Henry came in from outside, boots caked in a thin layer of dust. He set a trowel by the door and tapped his knee in greeting. "He's looking livelier," Henry noted, kneeling beside the pup. Chance recognized him now and lifted his muzzle as though to say thank you for cutting that rope. Lily cleared her throat. "I was thinking, Grandpa, maybe I can sell some produce at the farmer's market this weekend. I know it won't bring in much, but every little bit helps with Chance's expenses." Henry paused, his gaze drifting momentarily to the swirl of dust motes in the morning sunbeam. "That's thoughtful of you," he replied softly. "But let's not forget it's the middle of summer. Those tomatoes in the garden might not fetch a big price just yet." She nodded, undeterred. "We'll figure something out, I'm sure. I just hate the idea of not giving him what he needs." Henry gently smoothed Chance's head. "We'll manage," he said. Then, rising from his crouch, he added, "But first we do our day's work. The stable needs cleaning, horses need their routine, and we've a fence in the back that's about ready to fall over." By mid-morning, Lily and Henry were out near the barn, hauling bales of hay into neat rows. The horses, tall and glossy in the sunlight, flicked their ears at Chance's scent that lingered on Lily's clothes. Behind them, a cluster of chickens pecked busily at the dirt, scattering whenever the pair strode too close. Lily worked with a steady determination, occasionally sneaking a look toward the house where Chance remained. She felt a small pang of guilt for leaving him alone, but Henry insisted they needed to keep up with chores to afford any extra vet care down the line. Each pitchfork of hay reminded Lily that caring for an animal was never just about feeding it. It meant budgeting, adjusting schedules, and navigating the unpredictability of life's expenses. Still, every time the memory of Chance's wagging tail floated into her mind, she found renewed purpose. After finishing the morning tasks, Lily ran to the house. She entered quietly, half expecting to see Chance curled up asleep. To her surprise, the living room was empty. Startled, she hurried through the narrow hallway. Her pulse quickened until she spotted him in the small laundry area off the kitchen. There he stood, investigating a pile of folded towels on a low shelf. The sight of him balancing on 3 legs, gently propping his lame paw against the shelf, made her heart swell. "Hey, buddy," she called softly, smiling with relief. Chance's ears perked and he turned around, wagging his tail in that slow, shy manner. Lily hurried to scoop him up, careful not to jar his injuries. "Sneaky boy," she teased. "Getting to know the place, huh?" She carried him back to the living room, setting him by the window so he could look outside. The glass was slightly smudged, but enough sunlight poured in for him to see the sprawl of farmland. She could tell by the slow tilt of his head that he was mesmerized by the wide open space, so different from the confining tree trunk he'd been tethered to. Henry soon joined them, wiping sweat from his brow. He rested a broad hand on Lily's shoulder, then nodded toward Chance. "How about we take him out for a short walk?" They decided the best spot was a patch of grass at the side of the house. Lily set Chance down gently, and Henry improvised a short lead with some spare cord, giving the pup enough freedom to sniff around without wandering into the more uneven terrain. Chance tested the length of the cord, limping carefully, but clearly eager to explore. His tail lifted to a low wag whenever he caught an intriguing scent in the breeze. "Look at that," Lily breathed, pride in her voice. "He's not afraid." Henry folded his arms. "He has spirit, probably always did." Then, quieter, "I'm just sorry someone tried to break it." They stayed out until midday heat began to press down on their shoulders. Back inside, Lily laid out fresh water for Chance, while Henry rummaged through a drawer in the kitchen. He pulled out a tattered business card. "This belongs to the traveling vet I mentioned," he explained. "Name's Dr. Pressman. Says he comes round once every couple of weeks. Might be here next Thursday." Lily took the card, reading the small print. "It's a week away," she mused. "But I guess that's better than nothing. Maybe I can check local ads to see if there's a free clinic in town." Henry nodded, appreciating her determination. A quiet afternoon followed. Chance napped off and on, regaining strength little by little. Lily spent time brushing him gently with a soft comb. Mats of fur loosened, leaving him looking more like a spirited German shepherd puppy than a ragged stray. She spoke to him as she worked, telling him little details about her life, how her parents had sent her here for the summer to experience a slower pace, how she spent her early mornings writing in a journal, and how she loved stargazing at night. It was a one-sided conversation, but she swore his ears twitched, as though he was listening. In the late afternoon, Henry called Lily outside. Standing by the fence that separated their property from a neighbor's, he gestured to a sagging section of wood. "If this collapses, we'll have bigger problems," he said grimly. "Might lose a horse or let the goats wander off. I'll need your help reinforcing it." Lily hesitated, glancing back at the house. Henry read the worry in her eyes. "He'll be fine, Lil," he reassured. "We've got time. Let him rest. You already fed him, right?" She nodded, remembering the pup's enthusiastic gulping of the midday meal. "Yes, he's had enough for now." "Good. We'll be quick," Henry promised, though he doubted any fence work could ever be truly quick under the summer sun. Sure enough, it took most of the afternoon to brace the boards and hammer new supports in place. Sweat dripped down Lily's forehead as she handed nails to Henry. The old man worked with careful precision, having seen too many accidents result from rushing. By the time they finished, their shadows stretched long across the ground. A sense of accomplishment bloomed in Lily's chest, but her thoughts drifted back to the pup. They traipsed back, passing the barn and the spot where Lily had found Chance that first morning. Her heart squeezed at the memory of that lifeless rope on the ground. "He'll never have to worry about that again," she whispered, remembering how different the ranch felt now, with Chance's presence nudging them to care more deeply. When they finally returned inside, the house was quiet, except for the ticking of an old clock. Lily found Chance in the same spot he'd been left, dozing with his nose nestled between his paws. His ear twitched at the sound of the door, and he lifted his head. Lily knelt down, offering a soft greeting. "You doing okay, buddy?" A flicker of relief passed over her face. He seemed more alert than ever. Henry poured 2 glasses of water from the kitchen tap. "Tomorrow I'll drive into town, see if I can find any resources for new dog owners, maybe pick up some food that's right for him." He paused, then said quietly, "Might be good to get him a collar that fits, so we're not just using rope." The notion of buying a collar for an animal not long ago considered a random burden made Lily's chest swell with quiet joy. She envisioned a bright, sturdy collar, something that signaled that Chance was, without question, part of this family now. As the evening air cooled, Lily settled with a book on the sofa. Chance, after drinking water and gingerly walking about, waddled over to the couch and peered up at her. With a smile, she scooped him into her lap, mindful of his healing injuries. He snuggled against her, surprisingly calm. She ran her fingers along his back, reading him passages from the pages. It didn't matter that he couldn't understand the words. Her voice lulled him, and the warmth between them spoke its own language of safety. Henry glanced at the pair, the lamplight casting gentle shadows across the living room walls. He remembered another time, years ago, when Lily was just a toddler chasing a stray cat around the yard, determined to befriend it. The memory painted a faint smile on his face. Some things didn't change, he supposed. Lily's empathy for helpless creatures was like a sturdy root, unshakable, always seeking to help. Over the next hour, the house grew quieter, and Lily nearly drifted to sleep with the puppy on her lap. Chance dozed too, lulled by the comfort of her presence. Only the sporadic crackle of wood in the stove and the murmur of a distant radio in Henry's bedroom reminded them that the world beyond their small oasis still existed. But for this moment, it felt as though the entire universe was contained here, in the hush of a farmhouse night. In that serene cocoon, Chance's tail gave the tiniest wag as he slipped into slumber. No longer bound to a tree or haunted by the memory of being discarded, he breathed softly against Lily's arm, secure in a happiness he'd never known before. The sun rose over the farmland in a gentle glow, revealing thin patches of morning mist drifting across the fields. Henry had been up for half an hour, nursing a cup of coffee as he prepared to drive into town. Lily, groggy with sleep, woke to the sound of the pickup's engine sputtering to life. She dashed to the window and saw her grandfather inspecting the tires, making sure they were fit for the bumpy roads. Chance, sprawled on his blankets by the stove, lifted his head at the noise, ears tilting in curiosity. "Grandpa," Lily called, opening the front door and stepping onto the porch. A soft breeze ruffled her hair. "Wait for me. I can come help carry supplies." Henry gave a measured nod. "Sure thing. But let's not be long. I want to check on the south fence when we get back." It took only a few minutes for Lily to wash her face, tie her boots, and leave fresh water for Chance. She placed a treat near his dish. "We'll be back soon," she promised, giving him a gentle pat on the head. The puppy, still a bit unsure, looked at her with those dark, trusting eyes. He seemed to understand that she would return. As they pulled away from the ranch, Lily pressed her cheek to the pickup's window, gazing at the wide expanse of green that had become Chance's new home. The morning sun made everything glimmer in a subtle gold, and for a heartbeat, she felt a surge of gratitude that they had found the puppy when they did. In the reflection of the dusty window, she caught sight of Henry's kind but pensive expression. "What's on your mind, Grandpa?" Lily asked softly. He drummed his fingers against the steering wheel. "Just thinking about the costs for the dog. Vet bills can be steep and I don't want to shortchange him." A small pang of worry tugged at Lily. "We'll make it work. Maybe we can sell some of that extra jam I made last week. People at the market might like homemade preserves." Henry's face brightened a little. "Good idea. We can set a small table up front. Folks around here love homemade goods." They drove for nearly 20 minutes, passing other farms scattered along the dirt road, each with its own story told by old barns, tractor rust, and well-tended fields. Eventually, the paved highway emerged, winding toward the small main street of the nearest town. Henry parked outside a modest supply store, its sign faded but still legible, Connie's Feed and General Goods. Lily hopped out, inhaling the scents of fresh hay and motor oil that lingered around the store's entrance. Inside, shelves were lined with animal feed, seed packets, gardening tools, and an assortment of rural necessities. A middle-aged woman with a warm smile stood behind the counter. "Henry, Lily," she greeted. "Haven't seen you two in a while." "Morning, Connie," said Henry, tipping his hat. "We've come for a few things. Got a new dog at the ranch." Lily beamed. "We found him tied up, abandoned. I'd like to get him a collar, maybe some puppy chow." Connie's expression shifted from friendly to outraged disbelief. "Tied up? That's awful. I've heard rumors of dogs getting dumped out by the old Orchard Road. Some folks show no mercy." She shook her head, then ushered them toward the right aisle. "Collars are over here, and I've got a decent brand of dog food that's not too pricey." Henry examined the options, picking up a sturdy collar in a dark green shade. Lily noticed a bright red one and held it up against her chest, imagining how it would look against Chance's fur. She eventually settled on the red, figuring something cheerful might bring out his eyes. Henry shrugged, figuring it was Lily's call. They grabbed a medium-sized bag of dry food, plus a few cans of softer meals that might be easier on the pup's stomach. Before they could head to the counter, Henry pulled out a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "Connie, you know of any vet clinics offering free or discounted checkups soon? We can't wait too long, but we're short on time until Dr. Pressman swings by." Connie tapped her chin. "Let me think. There was a flyer on the board outside about a traveling vet team doing a pop-up clinic next weekend. They'll be at the fairgrounds. Might be worth giving them a call." Lily's eyes lit up. "That's perfect, Grandpa. Maybe we can get him checked out there." Henry thanked Connie, paid for the supplies, and tucked the receipt into his shirt pocket. They carried their purchases to the truck. Lily placed the collar in her lap, running her fingertips over the braided edges. She already pictured Chance wearing it, no longer forced to endure a coarse rope or the threat of abandonment. On the drive back, Henry stopped by a small produce stand near the edge of town. Lily sprang out to inquire about selling her homemade jam. The woman managing the stand, a cheerful local named Maribel, was happy to clear a small corner of her table for Lily's jars. "Drop them by this afternoon and I'll see if we get any bites," Maribel offered. Thrilled, Lily returned to the pickup with a promise to come back later. "If I sell enough, Grandpa, that'll help cover Chance's vaccines or anything else he needs." Henry nodded, pressing the gas pedal gently. "You've always had a good heart, Lil." They reached the ranch near noon, the sun high overhead. Lily hopped out as soon as Henry parked, trotting inside with the red collar in hand. She found Chance dozing near the window, a paw draped over the blanket as though staking a claim. His ears perked instantly at her approach. She sank to her knees beside him, setting the collar on the floor so he could sniff it. "This is for you," she said softly. "Means you're ours now." Chance blinked, then gave the collar a tentative lick. Lily laughed, carefully fastening it around his neck. It was slightly loose so as not to irritate his healing skin. She stepped back to admire him. "Red suits you, bud," she declared. The pup seemed oblivious to color, but understood it as a gentle new weight around his neck. His tail wagged slowly. While Lily prepared lunch for both them and Chance, Henry flipped through the local paper, searching for more information about the pop-up vet clinic. He found a small advertisement: free basic checkups, rabies shots, and pet care seminars Saturday at the fairgrounds. When Lily passed by, he tapped the ad. "We can take him day after tomorrow, enough time to gather a little extra cash from your jam sales." Her eyes sparkled. "We'll get him a clean bill of health." Then, quieter, "Unless, do you think whoever tied him out there might show up at the fairgrounds?" Henry frowned. "Could be. But if they come forward, we'd have words for them, that's for sure. Until someone proves otherwise, he's under our care." After lunch, Lily left to deliver her jam to Maribel's produce stand. Henry stayed behind with Chance, working on small tasks around the house so the pup wouldn't be alone. Whenever Henry stepped onto the porch, Chance followed at a careful distance, pacing himself to not aggravate his leg. The collar's red color stood out sharply against his dark coat, a visual sign that he wasn't just a lost stray anymore. He belonged here. Mid-afternoon, Henry took a chair out to the porch and set up a small table with some whittling supplies. Chance settled at his feet, dozing in the warm breeze. Occasionally a chicken wandered by, eyeing them suspiciously before clucking off into the yard. Henry had never been a man of many words, but the quiet presence of this young dog stirred memories he'd thought he'd put behind him. Years ago, he'd once rescued a stray cat that ended up living in the barn for a decade, rewarding him with purrs and a quiet companionship he hadn't known he needed. Now he found himself feeling that same sense of a life unexpectedly enriched. When Lily returned at sunset, she was triumphant. "Sold 4 jars already," she announced, showing a few crumpled bills. "Maribel says tourists love homemade jam. She even wants to stock some pickled cucumbers if we have extra from the garden." Henry cracked a grin. "Seems like we're running a full operation now." "Good work, Lil." She hurried inside, squeaking with excitement when she found Chance waiting. He wriggled happily at her approach. "Looks like we'll have enough for the vet this weekend," Lily said, ruffling his ears. "You'll be all set, friend." They shared a modest dinner of mashed potatoes and beans, saving a bit of unseasoned chicken for Chance. After the day's labor, Lily was yawning by the time the dishes were done. Yet she insisted on brushing Chance's coat again. "He's got those knots near his tail," she remarked. Henry nodded. "Another evening or two and he might look like a show dog." Lily giggled at the thought. "We'll see about that." They ended their night in the living room, with Lily reading a magazine article aloud to Chance about different dog breeds. She smiled whenever the text mentioned German Shepherds, loyal, brave, intelligent. She couldn't help but see glimmers of those qualities already shining in her new companion. Even Henry, half listening from his armchair, commented that the descriptions sounded fitting. By the time Lily set the magazine aside, the moon was already cresting above the house, silver light slipping in through the windows. The hush of the countryside surrounded them, broken only by the occasional owl or the distant rustle of a horse in the stable. Chance lay curled at Lily's feet, the red collar an undeniable sign that he was no longer nameless or alone. Through drooping eyelids, she thought about the days ahead, the vet visit, maybe more produce sales, and hopefully a future for Chance that never involved another rope tied to a tree. Before turning off the final lamp, Lily knelt one last time and touched her forehead to Chance's. "You're part of us now," she whispered, letting the gentle rise and fall of his breathing soothe any lingering worries. "We'll keep you safe, I promise." Saturday arrived bright and early, the sun sliding over low-hanging clouds as though it had somewhere urgent to be. Lily felt the day's energy flutter in her stomach the moment she opened her eyes. The pop-up vet clinic at the fairgrounds was only a few hours away, and she couldn't wait to have Chance examined by a professional. While Henry read the weather report on his old radio, Lily dressed in a comfortable pair of jeans and a faded green t-shirt, then hurried to the living room to check on her canine companion. Chance was sprawled on his side, his newly brushed fur glinting faintly in the morning light. The red collar, which still looked a little large on him, served as a vivid reminder that he wasn't a stray anymore. He'd slept well, though Lily noticed he favored his injured leg when standing. She crouched beside him, gently running a hand down his flank. He blinked blearily, then let out a small whine that sounded more like a greeting than a complaint. "Morning, buddy," she said softly. "Today's the big day. We'll get you checked by the vet and make sure everything's okay." Henry shuffled in behind her, clearing his throat. "We should head out soon, Lil. It's an hour's drive to the fairgrounds, plus whatever line we'll face once we're there." He set down a coil of rope by the door in case they needed any extra lead for Chance. Lily helped Chance walk out to the truck, stepping carefully to keep him from stumbling. She had fashioned a makeshift ramp out of an old board so he could climb into the passenger area without jumping. Henry started the engine, and Lily settled in the back seat beside the pup, holding him close. As they pulled onto the main road, the air felt charged with promise. Lily clutched a small notebook where she had written questions for the vet. Vaccines needed, weight goal, best diet for recovery. Chance stood with his front paws braced on Lily's leg, gazing out the window at passing fields and farmhouses. The gentle hum of the truck seemed to soothe him, though occasionally he tilted his head at new sights. A mailbox shaped like a cow, a windmill turning lazily in the breeze. The world must have felt enormous to a dog who had once been tied to a single tree. By the time they reached the fairgrounds, the parking lot was already filling up with cars, trucks, and even a few battered vans that clearly carried multiple pets. A large banner near the entrance read, "Free Animal Care and Vet Services." Volunteers wearing bright orange vests directed people to different stations, check-in, vaccine lines, spay-neuter appointments, and a small area for adoptable pets. Henry parked the truck, and Lily carefully lifted Chance down. "We'll go slow," she reassured, rubbing his shoulders when he looked uncertain. The bustle of the crowd, along with a chorus of barking dogs and meowing cats, must have felt overwhelming. Yet Chance pressed on, tail low but wagging, as if determined not to let fear control him. They joined the main queue for triage, where a friendly woman named Martina took down their information. "Abandoned German Shepherd puppy, you say?" she murmured, scanning a clipboard. "We'll get him checked for worms and injuries. Doctor on duty can recommend vaccines." While they waited, Lily watched others with a growing sense of empathy. A man cradled a tiny kitten in a blanket, worry etched across his face. A family tried to calm a trembling Jack Russell that seemed spooked by the crowd. Everywhere, volunteers scurried about with water bowls, leashes, and stacks of paperwork. Despite the chaos, the atmosphere held a shared purpose, caring for these animals. Eventually, they were ushered into a makeshift exam area under a large tent. Metal tables were lined up in rows, each staffed by a veterinarian or technician. Henry lifted Chance onto a table where a young vet named Dr. Eden introduced herself. She had warm eyes and a disarming smile. "Let's see how this little fellow is doing," she said, pressing a stethoscope lightly to his chest. Chance froze at the cold metal against his fur, but Lily's reassuring presence steadied him. Dr. Eden listened carefully, checking his heartbeat and lungs. She gently felt along his limbs, pausing at his left back leg. "He's definitely favoring this side," she remarked. "Could be a sprain, maybe a mild fracture that's trying to heal on its own. An X-ray would confirm if there's anything serious. In the meantime, rest is crucial, no running around or jumping." Lily nodded, absorbing every word. "We've been trying to limit his activity, but he's so curious about everything. It's hard to keep him still." With a patient chuckle, Dr. Eden said, "He's a puppy after all. But do your best to keep him calm until his leg fully recovers. Now about his weight. He's underweight, as we can see. I'm guessing he's been malnourished for some time. Feed him quality puppy food, small meals throughout the day. That should help him gain steadily without upsetting his stomach. Henry rubbed his chin, relieved that there was no immediate sign of a life-threatening condition. We'll do that. What about shots? Dr. Eden listed the core vaccines: distemper, parvo, rabies. He's definitely old enough for his first round. We can give him at least the initial sets today. He might need boosters, but for now, let's ensure he's protected. I'll also give him a dewormer. Chance squirmed a bit as the vet prepared the injections, but Lily held him gently, whispering, "It's okay, boy. This is to keep you safe." The moment the needle pricked his skin, he let out a tiny yelp. Lily felt a pang of guilt, but Dr. Eden was quick, and within a few seconds, it was done. "You'll want to watch him the next couple of days," Dr. Eden advised, scribbling notes on a slip of paper. "Sometimes puppies get a little sore or lethargic after vaccines. If he has any problems, there's a number you can call here." With a final pat, Dr. Eden declared, "He's lucky you found him. Another night out there might have been dangerous in his condition." Before Lily could respond, a small commotion arose a few tables over. A harsh voice barked, "Watch it, Mutt," followed by the yelp of a frightened dog. Lily craned her neck to see a man snatching the leash of a thin hound, pulling sharply enough to lift the dog's front paws off the ground. Volunteers rushed over, admonishing him in hushed tones. The man scowled, his knuckles white around the handle of the leash. Henry noticed Lily's sudden tension and placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's not our fight," he said quietly. But Lily bristled at the sight, recalling how Chance must have felt in the hands of someone just as callous. Chance seemed to pick up on the tension. He let out a soft whine, nuzzling Lily's arm as though to say, "Let's go somewhere calmer." Dr. Eden, also disturbed by the incident, turned back to Lily. "Some folks," she said under her breath, "just remember, you're doing a good thing." They left the exam tent with a mixture of relief. Chance's immediate health concerns seemed manageable, and lingering unease about the cruelty in the world. Outside, the fairgrounds had grown even busier. Vendors sold snacks, and children ran around with balloon animals. Lily tried to redirect her mind, focusing on the positive. They had the vaccines done, the pup checked, and instructions on how to help him heal. Henry found a patch of grass near a shaded picnic table, and they settled there for a moment to give Chance a break from the crowd. Lily offered him water from a portable bowl, which he lapped up eagerly. She noticed with a glimmer of pride how much more lively he seemed than the day they found him. Despite the injection, he was alert, his gaze darting across the throngs of people and animals. "Still up for some exploring?" Henry asked, scanning the nearby stands. "We could grab an ice cream or something. Let him rest a bit more." Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, please." She carefully cradled Chance to keep weight off his sore leg, then followed Henry through rows of tables displaying crafts, pet supplies, and local produce. It reminded Lily of the small farmers market near their ranch, but on a larger scale. She couldn't help noticing that many of the folks here were in a similar position, either rescuing strays or supporting animals in need. A booth labeled "Find Your Rescue" caught Lily's eye. Run by a local animal shelter, it displayed photos of dogs and cats awaiting homes. People milled about, talking to volunteers. Lily felt a swell of gratitude that places like this existed, though she also felt an ache for every abandoned animal still waiting for a safe haven. Chance, blinking sleepily in her arms, was one of the lucky ones. Henry came back with an ice cream cone, which he handed to Lily, and a small plain cup of soft serve for Chance to try. Lily dabbed a tiny bit on her finger and let Chance lick it. His eyes widened at the sweet, cool taste, and for a moment, Lily could almost see his puppy spirit shining through. It was such a simple joy, yet it felt monumental, like a definitive break from his harsh past. They found a quiet corner near a hay bale display where Lily sat and let Chance rest on her lap. She gazed at the sea of people passing by, each with a story, each either giving or receiving help. Henry watched her with a thoughtful expression. "You're thinking, aren't you?" he teased gently. "I know that look." She laughed, though her voice was subdued. "Just about how big the world is and how there are so many animals out there needing kindness." She looked down at Chance, who had begun to nod off, lulled by the steady hum of voices. "I wish I could help them all." Henry sighed, patting her shoulder. "We do what we can, one life at a time." A hush fell between them, broken only by the distant carnival tune from the other side of the fairgrounds. In that moment, Lily decided that no matter what it took, she would keep forging a path for Chance to have the life he deserved. And if that meant building her own future around caring for animals, even beyond the ranch, she would. Perhaps she would volunteer at a local shelter or explore veterinary medicine one day. Soon, it was time to head home. Henry held Chance while Lily navigated the truck's ramp, then they settled the pup in a soft blanket on the back seat. The road stretched before them, a line of dusty horizon that glimmered under the afternoon sun. Lily dozed during the drive, and whenever she blinked awake, she saw Henry's determined profile, content to let the radio drone about local weather forecasts. By the time they turned onto the winding dirt path leading to the farmhouse, Chance had stirred, pressing his nose against the window as though he recognized the land. Lily smiled, her heart warming at the realization that he now viewed this place as home. Henry slowed the truck, taking care not to jostle him. At last, they parked by the porch. Lily gently lifted Chance out, and he stepped onto the familiar soil with surprising confidence. The day at the clinic might have been scary, but he had braved it. As she guided him up the worn steps, Lily felt a deep sense of relief. The tests, shots, and professional advice were all behind them now, and the path ahead, though not entirely easy, looked brighter than ever. Back at the ranch, Lily carried Chance from the truck to the porch, mindful of the instructions the vet had given. The puppy sniffed the air, his tail stirring up little gusts of dust as if greeting the place he now knew as home. Henry lingered by the driver's door, setting aside a small bag with leftover supplies from the fairgrounds. He watched Lily cradle the pup against her chest, noticing how carefully she stepped to avoid jostling his injured leg. In the sky, clouds gathered in wispy clusters, hinting that an evening shower might pass through soon. For Henry, the day at the clinic felt like a new chapter in their journey, a promise that Chance's future was brighter than the day they first found him, trembling and alone. Inside, Lily set Chance down on the living room floor, where he stretched his limbs and took a few tentative steps. The house felt different somehow, as if their time at the fairgrounds had broken a barrier of uncertainty. With fresh confidence, Chance explored the small space near the wood stove, pausing to sniff at the faint trace of ash. Lily watched him fondly, recalling how Dr. Eden praised his resilience. She removed the pamphlets from her pocket, reading over the notes on proper feeding, rest, and potential exercises for gentle rehabilitation. In the background, Henry rustled through the grocery bag, pondering what dinner might look like. Chance halted by Lily's feet, eyeing her as if waiting for the next instruction. She bent down, patting his head, feeling that same. "We'll follow the vet's orders," Lily declared, lifting Chance into her arms. "That means rest, short walks on even ground, and lots of good food." Henry nodded, placing vegetables on the counter. "I'm just glad there weren't any hidden complications. Looks like he'll heal well, so long as we don't push him." Outside, the clouds they'd noticed earlier began drifting lower, and a faint rumble of thunder suggested a storm was on its way. Chance caught the noise, ears swiveling, but Lily soothed him with a gentle hush. The memory of that first tempest, when he was tied and abandoned, flickered in her mind. She stroked his fur, promising he'd never face the dark alone again. In the kitchen, Henry chopped carrots, preparing a simple stew while Lily measured chances. Outside, the wind kicked up, rattling a loose shutter on the barn. By late afternoon, fat raindrops began peppering the roof. Lily placed a pot on the stove to warm leftover broth, thinking Chance might enjoy a taste added to his dry food. Henry stacked firewood by the door, glancing at the darkening sky. "We'll ride this out indoors," he said. Chance hovered near Lily's feet, occasionally gazing at the window, where thunder rumbled. His legs trembled at each deep rumble, but Lily laid a comforting hand on him, whispering how safe he was. She recalled the battered rope they'd found, tossed aside in the weeds, never to be used again. Tonight, no matter how fierce the rain fell, Chance would be sheltered and free from fear. Outside, lightning flickered. The evening settled in, and the downpour intensified, drumming on the tin roof of the porch. Henry lit a lantern in the living room, though electric lights still glowed overhead. The lantern's soft glow felt reassuring, a ritual he followed whenever storms rattled the farmhouse. Lily spread extra blankets near the wood stove, creating a cozy nest for Chance. The puppy approached it tentatively, sniffing the wool fibers before settling down. Whenever thunder cracked, Lily knelt close, murmuring that everything was fine. She read from a dog care booklet she'd picked up at the fairgrounds, highlighting tips on wound care and socialization. Henry flipped through the radio channels, but static filled most frequencies. Eventually, he found a slow country tune, letting it play softly as the rain battered the roof. After dinner, Lily scooped some warm broth over Chance's kibble. His appetite had grown impressively since his rescue, and she smiled, watching him devour every bite. Henry took a seat at the small kitchen table, sighing as he stretched his arms. "It's strange," he admitted quietly, "but this pup makes the house feel so much livelier." Lily joined him, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "He's changed a lot in me too," she said. "I'm thinking more seriously about animals, maybe even working at a shelter once I'm older." Outside, a sudden gust rattled the window panes, sending droplets streaming down the glass. Chance glanced up, ears twitching, then returned to his meal. Henry smiled, wondering how one small dog could spark such big dreams in both there. By the time Lily and Henry finished cleaning up, the storm had softened into a steady drizzle. Raindrops glistened on the window like tiny crystals. Chance waddled after Lily, tail wagging at half-mast. She took a seat on the couch and invited him up, mindful of his leg. He climbed gingerly, then curled into a small ball at her side. Outside, the wind rustled through wet leaves, and the distant call of a barn owl floated through the damp air. Lily stroked Chance's fur, feeling the steady thump of his heartbeat against her hand. Henry settled into his armchair, the radio's soft tune underscoring the quiet peace. In that moment, Lily thought of how easily he might have been lost forever if they hadn't ventured outside that fateful evening. Gradually, Chance drifted off to sleep, lulled by Lily's gentle caresses. She felt her own eyelids grow heavy as the lamp in the corner flickered. Henry cleared his throat, standing up with a small groan of stiff joints. "We'd best turn in soon," he remarked. "Tomorrow's Sunday, and we've got more fence repairs after church." Lily nodded, gently lifting the sleeping puppy off the couch. She set him on his blankets, making sure his injured leg was comfortably positioned. Outside, the drizzle continued, creating a soft percussion on the metal roof. Henry dimmed the lantern, leaving only a warm glow from the kitchen light. Lily watched Chance breathe, each exhale a small reminder of how precious life could be. She placed a gentle kiss on his brow, then whispered goodnight. That night, Lily dreamed of open fields under a dazzling sky with countless stars pulsing overhead. In the dream, Chance ran beside her, strong and unafraid, no sign of injury slowing him down. She felt a warm breeze against her skin and heard his joyful bark. When she woke in the dim hush before dawn, she realized tears had found their way down her cheeks. Outside, the storm had fully passed, leaving the world washed clean. She slipped out of bed, padding softly into the living room. The first glow of sunrise illuminated Chance's sleeping form. He seemed peaceful, chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Lily knelt beside him, heart brimming with gratitude that he no longer suffered in darkness. She placed a hand on his side, feeling. At that moment, she realized her life had already changed more than she could have imagined. Chance wasn't just a rescued puppy. He was a symbol of perseverance and hope, a testament to how swiftly kindness could mend a broken spirit. Rising to her feet, Lily tiptoed to the window, witnessing pink ribbons of light spread across the horizon. Sunday would bring more work, more small moments of joy, and perhaps new challenges as Chance continued healing, but every day he grew stronger in body and in trust. Lily exhaled, embracing the calm of dawn. She understood that while his scars ran deep, they would serve as reminders of resilience, paving the way for a better tomorrow. In the hush, Chance stirred slightly, stretching toward the light, as though welcoming. Sunday morning found the farmhouse wrapped in quiet. Outside, faint trails of mist lingered, where the early sun touched remnants of rain. Lily had slept lightly after her dawn reverie, eventually drifting off once again only to awaken a few hours later, greeted by the smell of fresh coffee and the sound of Henry's boots clomping across the porch. She rubbed her eyes, then slipped into her clothes, eager to check on Chance. She found him curled near the stove, blinking sleepily at the soft daylight. His ears twitched at her approach, and his tail drummed a weak rhythm on the wooden floor. She knelt to pet him. "Morning, buddy," she murmured. "Ready for another day?" Despite the ache in his leg, he rose and sniffed around, more energetic than usual. He nosed toward his water bowl as if to remind Lily that breakfast was never far from his mind. Henry, carrying a small basket of eggs from the chicken coop, stepped inside and closed the door gently. "He's up early," Henry observed. "A good sign, I'd say." Lily grinned, reaching for the bag of puppy food. She measured out a portion and sprinkled in a little warm broth. Chance gulped it down eagerly, front paws planted in determination as though each bite fortified him further. "It's Sunday, Grandpa," Lily said, glancing at the old clock on the wall. "Are we still heading into church, or should we stay home to look after him?" Henry considered. For as long as Lily could remember, he'd attended the small, white, steepled church a few miles away, a routine that anchored his week. "We won't stay long," he decided. "But I want to put in an appearance. The congregation might notice I'm missing and worry." He cleared his throat. "We can leave Chance here with water, and I'll crack a window so he gets fresh air. He's not fit for crowds, especially if we end up chatting with neighbors after the service." Lily nodded. "We'll make sure he's settled. Besides, we won't be gone more than a couple of hours." They finished feeding the animals outside, ensuring the horses had fresh hay, and the chicken coop was secure. Lily took extra care with the new fencing along the property's edge, checking for loose nails. Afterward, she gathered her purse while Henry changed into a clean shirt, combing his thinning hair. Chance watched them from the living room, ears flicking curiously at the shuffle of Sunday preparations. Lily paused at the door. "We'll be back soon," she promised, lifting a soft blanket and positioning it near the couch for him. "Just rest that leg, okay?" His tail wagged in response. The church was a modest building with peeling paint, but a welcoming atmosphere. Parked cars and pickup trucks lined the small gravel lot. Henry and Lily slipped inside as gentle organ music set the tone for the morning service. They took their usual seats toward the back, where Henry liked to observe quietly, occasionally tipping his head in greeting to familiar faces. Lily tried to focus on the sermon, but her mind kept drifting back to Chance. She pictured him padding around the farmhouse, sniffing corners he hadn't yet explored. When the final hymn concluded, the congregation began filing out. A few neighbors approached Henry, shaking his hand. Lily caught snippets of conversation. Talk of harvest times, mention of a recent break-in at a neighboring property, and occasional speculation about the storm that had passed. Mrs. Duncan, a kindly older woman, recognized Lily and asked how she was liking the farm this summer. Lily brightened, explaining how they'd rescued a German Shepherd pup. A pup? Mrs. Duncan's eyes softened. You folks are good to take him in. This land's big enough for a dog to roam. A man named Arnold, standing nearby, chimed in. A German Shepherd, you say? People have spotted one limping out by the orchard last week. Might be the same dog. He looked in real bad shape. Henry and Lily exchanged a glance. She suppressed the urge to confront Arnold about how someone could have abandoned the pup, but they politely nodded, thankful that Chance was no longer at the orchard's mercy. Outside, clouds began to gather again, though not as dark as before. Henry placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. Let's head home. I don't want him fretting if the sky starts grumbling. Lily agreed wholeheartedly. They drove back across the winding roads, passing fields of tall corn that rustled in the growing wind. As soon as the farmhouse came into view, Lily felt her pulse ease. She hopped out of the truck and dashed inside, calling, Chance, we're back. The puppy emerged from behind the couch, tail wagging in a quick flutter. He limped forward, eyes bright. Lily scooped him up and noticed that his food bowl was licked clean. Henry, who entered behind her, gave a small laugh. He's definitely got his appetite. They spent the next hour in peaceful routine. Lily tidied the living room, stacking her dog care pamphlets in a neat pile, while Henry peeled potatoes for Sunday lunch. Chance napped in the patch of sun that fell across the floor, dozing contentedly until the smell of sizzling butter lured him awake. Lily served a simple meal of roasted vegetables and leftover chicken, setting aside a portion of unseasoned meat for Chance. Even though he'd eaten recently, he never turned down a chance at more food. After lunch, Henry examined the sky. Looks like another shower's coming. The clouds have that dark underside. Lily nodded, glancing at the horizon. She felt a pang of guilt. She had hoped to walk with Chance around the ranch again, letting him practice gentle exercise. But if a storm came, it might be better to stay indoors. Late afternoon arrived and a soft rain began to fall, tapping against the windows. Lily spread out an old quilt on the living room floor and encouraged Chance to practice short walks on it, the padding protecting his paw from the hardwood's slick surface. He complied gamely, lifting each leg with determination. Whenever he faltered, Lily guided him with gentle hands. Henry observed from his armchair, occasionally offering tips about dog training he'd overheard from traveling neighbors. When a bolt of lightning flashed, illuminating the yard, Lily felt Chance tense, a small tremor running through him. She drew him close, letting him rest his chin on her forearm. I wonder, she murmured to Henry, if storms will always make him nervous because of how we found him. Henry sighed. Possibly, but with time, he'll learn he's safe. Replacing bad memories with good ones is all we can do. When the rain tapered off, Lily decided to try a brief outing on the covered porch. The air smelled of wet grass and distant ozone. She set a folded towel near the rocking chair, giving Chance a place to sit comfortably. He perched there, ears twitching at droplets plunking into puddles. Lily smoothed her palm over his back, admiring how his once rough coat was turning glossy. Even that scab on his ear had nearly healed, thanks to daily cleaning. Within a few minutes, Henry joined them, a mug of coffee in hand. The three sat quietly, watching dark clouds drift away. Horses whinnied in the distance as they nosed the damp ground for fresh shoots. Henry took a slow sip. "You've done good by him, Lil," he said softly. "He's a different dog already." She smiled, glancing at the puppy. "We still have a lot to learn about him. I wonder what he'll be like once he's grown." Henry chuckled. "Likely bigger than we expect. Shepherds aren't exactly lap dogs." Chance yawned, revealing a row of sharp baby teeth. The idea of him growing larger, bounding confidently around the farmland, made Lily's heart flutter with anticipation. She pictured training him to fetch sticks, maybe even help herd the goats if his instincts proved strong. A future stretched out in her mind like an endless field, bright under a summer sun. As dusk fell, Lily and Henry retreated indoors, the porch floor still wet beneath their feet. Lily prepared a small meal for Chance, mixing in some vitamin supplements Dr. Eden had recommended. He licked the bowl clean in minutes. Afterward, she coaxed him into a calm state, massaging his flank and carefully rotating his injured leg to keep the muscles from stiffening. Dr. Eden had shown her how gentle stretches could support healing. Chance complied, trusting Lily's every move. While Lily worked with the pup, Henry called a neighbor, discussing the orchard property where the abandoned dog had first been spotted. Though no one admitted responsibility for tying him to that tree, local gossip suggested trouble with strangers passing through the area. Henry hung up the phone with a tight-lipped frown. He refused to share every detail with Lily, not wanting to stoke her anger, but he did warn that they should keep a sharp eye out for trespassers. Night settled over the ranch, the storm clouds gone, leaving the stars to gleam overhead. Lily brewed a small pot of chamomile tea, intending to wind down from the day's events. Chance curled on her lap, half dozing, his rhythmic breathing a lullaby in the otherwise silent house. Henry set a fresh log on the dying embers in the stove, the flames sputtering to life with a gentle crackle. "Tomorrow's Monday," Henry announced, folding the newspaper he'd been skimming. "And I've got to check the orchard boundary. Will you be okay here with Chance?" Lily nodded. "Sure. I'll do more of those exercises with him and maybe keep reading up on training methods. Maybe in a week or two he can manage a bit more movement." Henry's stern expression softened. "You're a good caretaker, Lil. He's lucky you found him." She met his gaze, a surge of affection for her grandfather blooming in her chest. "We're both lucky," she said simply, brushing her fingers through Chance's fur. Even half asleep, his tail thumped gently, as though he agreed. Time slipped by in companionable silence, broken only by the occasional pop from the stove. Lily fought her own drowsiness, reluctant to disrupt the puppy's tranquil rest. Eventually, Henry cleared his throat, announcing he was off to bed. Lily followed suit, placing Chance on the warm blankets near the stove. She crouched, her face close to his. "Good night, sweet boy," she whispered, voice full of fondness. With that, she turned off the lamp, leaving only a faint glow from the embers dancing across the walls. Chance let out a long, contented sigh, drifting deeper into slumber. Outside, the farmland exhaled in unison with him, fields glinting in starlight, the hush of night wrapping them in a protective embrace. In that final quiet moment, Lily felt as though all was exactly as it should be. The promise of tomorrow, the sense of safety they'd built, and the fragile bond between a girl and her rescued dog, all melded into one peaceful heartbeat. Chance was home, and no storm or memory of abandonment would steal that from him again. Monday dawned under a mild sky touched by thin streaks of pink. Henry woke early, as he always did, sipping his coffee on the porch steps, while the cool air whispered through the fields. He had an errand set for the morning, checking the orchard boundary to confirm no new damage had crept in overnight. Lily stirred awake to the sound of his boots on wood. When she joined him outside, brushing sleep from her eyes, she noticed how the horizon shimmered with a soft promise of warmth, no storm clouds in sight. While Lily prepared Chance's breakfast, Henry readied the truck for the short drive to the orchard. It wasn't far, but the dirt roads could be uneven, and he planned to bring along spare fencing materials just in case. The orchard itself sat on the far side of the property, a patch once famous for apple trees that locals claimed grew the sweetest fruit for miles around. Over time, though, many trees had withered from neglect, leaving the area a tangle of new shoots, tall grasses, and occasional trespassers. That rumor about strangers passing through unsettled Henry more than he let on. Inside the house, Lily gently coaxed Chance into his daily routine. He ate his softened kibble eagerly, tail wagging as if the start of the week held endless possibilities. The swelling in his injured leg had gone down, thanks to the stretches Lily performed and the rest he was forced to take, though the limp remained noticeable. Lily spoke softly to him between bites, describing the orchard as if it were a magical realm full of curious scents. Had Chance been healthier, she might have begged her grandfather to let the pup come along, but the orchard's uneven terrain was no place for a dog still learning to bear weight on a healing limb. "Keep an eye on him," Henry reminded Lily, loading a few fence posts into the truck bed. "I shouldn't be gone more than a couple of hours. If anything looks amiss, you call me right away, okay?" Lily nodded, understanding the caution. The orchard wasn't exactly a hotbed of criminal activity, but Henry's sense of responsibility had grown keener since they'd discovered Chance. He felt determined not to let any harm come near their home again. With a wave, Henry rumbled away, the truck's engine fading into the distance. Lily stood under the porch roof, watching dust swirl around the tire tracks. Taking a breath of the quiet morning air, she decided to fill her time productively. First, she would do a quick inspection of the garden for any weeds, then dedicate a solid hour to working with Chance on gentle movements. Her heart lifted at the thought of seeing him grow stronger each day. She found him by the living room window, balancing his weight on 3 legs, while he watched the world outside with bright curiosity. When Lily entered, his ears pricked, and he tottered over to greet her with a wag. She laughed at his enthusiasm, squatting low to receive his affections. "You're quite the explorer," she teased, ruffling the thick fur around his neck. "Just wait till you're fully healed and we can roam the fields together." They began their makeshift therapy session on a patch of old carpeting Lily had found in the barn, softer than the bare floor. She took hold of Chance's hind leg and gently rotated it, the way Dr. Eden had shown her. He flinched once, then relaxed, seeming to trust that she wouldn't hurt him. Outside the window, sunlight broke through a ring of clouds, splashing golden patterns across the floor. Lily found herself marveling at how each new day revealed more of the puppy's spirit. It was clear he wanted to play, to run, but necessity forced him to embrace patience. After about 20 minutes, Lily let Chance rest on the blanket. She fetched a small squeaky toy, an impulse purchase from the fairgrounds, and gave it a quick squeeze. The high-pitched sound startled him at first, but he soon inched closer, nose quivering. When Lily squeaked it again, he pounced in slow motion, limbs still unsteady, as if rehearsing the joys of normal puppyhood. Encouraged, Lily let him chew on the soft toy, enthralled by how his serious brown eyes lit up. This small moment, brimming with innocence, contrasted sharply with his initial condition: dirty, frightened, and tied to a tree. She felt an acute burst of gratitude that he was here now, safe and playful. Midway through the morning, Lily headed outside with a watering can to tend the vegetable rows. She propped the front door slightly ajar so that Chance could watch her from inside if he wished, but still remain contained. The tomatoes were coming along, green bulbs growing plump by the day, promising a late summer harvest. As she weeded, her mind wandered. She thought about the orchard, pictured Henry stepping between rows of gnarled trees. A mild unease tugged at her belly, though she couldn't pinpoint why. She glanced back at the house, reassuring herself that Chance was secure. The hours passed with quiet progress. After watering, Lily collected a few cucumbers for Maribel's produce stand. Then, remembering her jam sales, she considered what new recipes she might experiment with, perhaps strawberry preserves or even apple butter, once the orchard's fruit ripened again. She was returning from the chicken coop, a small basket of eggs in hand, when she heard a muffled bark from indoors. Rushing to the porch, she found Chance halfway through the open door, perched precariously at the threshold. He barked again, more urgent, as though trying to alert her to something. Setting the basket down, Lily entered to see what was wrong. The living room looked undisturbed except for the carpet where Chance had abandoned his toy. Then she realized the back window was open, a detail she didn't recall. "Did Grandpa leave that open?" she murmured to herself, stepping over to peer outside. A slight breeze rustled the curtains. She peered into the yard, scanning for movement. Nothing. Yet, something about the open window made her uneasy. She shut it with a soft click, mind racing. Could Henry have mentioned leaving it open for extra ventilation? She couldn't recall. Chance paced near Lily's feet. Letting out a low whine, she offered him a calming pat and said, "It's all right. No one's here." But even as she spoke, her spine prickled with doubt. She walked the perimeter of the house, glancing into each room. Everything seemed as they'd left it. The door to Henry's bedroom remained shut. The drawers and shelves in the living room were untouched, and the back door's lock was still latched. Perhaps it was all in her head, just nerves over Henry's warning that morning. Still, she resolved to keep the doors closed until her grandfather returned. She fetched a broom, intending to sweep the porch. The mundane task gave her something to focus on. Chance padded out with her, careful on the single step. The day had grown warmer, and a few clouds drifted across the sun in lazy arcs. A crow cawed from the fence post, and somewhere in the distance a tractor hummed. Lily found solace in these everyday sounds, letting them wash away the brief spike of worry. She guided Chance back inside, gave him a bit of water, then resumed her household chores. By early afternoon, Henry still hadn't returned. Lily made a simple lunch of sliced bread and cheese, offering Chance a small portion of shredded chicken as a treat. Between bites, she checked the clock. Shouldn't Grandpa be back by now? Anxiety churned in her stomach. She pictured the orchard again, its twisting pathways. Maybe the fence needed more fixing than he'd expected. Maybe he'd just lost track of time. Still, a sliver of dread insisted she try calling. She dialed Henry's cell phone, a modern contraption he didn't often carry or charge, but the line rang and rang with no answer. She exhaled, forcing down her rising alarm. He's fine, she told herself. The orchard is too close for him to have real trouble. Chance, perhaps sensing Lily's unease, rested his chin on her foot. She stroked his ears. "We'll wait a little longer," she told him. "If he's not back soon, we'll figure out what to do." Hoping to distract herself, Lily busied with small tasks, rinsing vegetables in the sink, organizing her jam jars, folding a load of laundry. But each minute felt heavier than the last. What if Henry's truck broke down? Or if he'd confronted strangers on the property? Her imagination spun scenarios she tried to banish. Eventually, an hour slipped by, then 2. Lily's nerves frayed. Chance whined softly whenever she paced across the floor. At last, unable to bear it, she decided to take action. She rummaged in the closet for a flashlight and a sturdy walking stick in case of uneven ground. Then, she crouched in front of Chance, heart pounding. "I have to go check," she whispered, running a hand over his collar. "I can't let you roam that orchard with your bad leg. You need to stay here. I'm sorry." Her throat tightened with guilt, but the orchard was no place for a limping pup. She quickly secured the house, closing windows, locking doors, and filling Chance's bowl with fresh water. He watched her anxiously, ears pressed back in confusion. Lily knelt, pressing her forehead to his. "I'll bring Grandpa back," she promised, hugging him gently. With that, she stepped onto the porch, latched the door behind her, and descended the steps. The late afternoon sun blazed, sending waves of heat shimmering over the dusty road. She felt small in that moment, setting out alone, but a fierce determination propelled her forward. She wouldn't rest until she found Henry. Her boots kicked up tiny clouds of dust as she trekked toward the orchard road. She'd traveled it before in the truck, but never on foot. The distance seemed daunting, each bend in the path revealing more farmland and fence lines. The orchard itself lay beyond a narrow stream. Lily walked briskly, ignoring the beads of sweat trailing down her temples. Twice she checked her phone futilely. Henry's number rang without answer, increasing her urgency. She remembered his warnings about trespassers, recalling the rumor about men who came at night. She pressed on, gripping the walking stick. Anxiety roiled in her belly like a simmering brew, but she forced each step to remain steady. Thoughts of Chance alone at home, scanning the door for her return, kept her from faltering. When Lily finally reached the orchard boundary, the old gate stood ajar. Lopsided boards made it look more foreboding than welcoming. She swallowed hard. Henry's truck was nowhere to be seen. Wind rustled the leaves overhead, a stark hush falling as she entered. Rows of apple trees, some half dead, some valiantly sprouting new shoots, stretched in uneven lines. The ground was littered with gnarled branches, rotting fruit, and tall grasses. She called out, "Grandpa?" Her voice echoed unanswered. An uneasy quiet pervaded the orchard, the only noise the occasional buzz of insects. Lily scanned the overgrown paths, searching for tire tracks or footprints. Some patches of earth looked disturbed, but it was impossible to tell how recent. A sense of dread pounded in her chest. Could Henry have gone deeper? She ventured deeper along a path where the trees grew more densely. The air was cooler here, shadows sprawling beneath sagging limbs. She called Henry's name again. Nothing. Her stomach clenched. Could he have turned around or walked somewhere else? She felt her heart race, imagining him hurt, pinned under fallen boards, or worst of all, confronting some ill-intentioned stranger. A prickle of sweat lined her brow as she forced her legs forward. The orchard felt endless, the hush almost menacing. In a pocket of silence, she heard something, a muffled cry. She froze, straining to hear. The breeze shifted, then faintly from somewhere beyond the next row of trees came the distant sound of an engine revving. Lily's pulse thundered. She steeled herself and began to run. Lily's heart hammered as she raced between the orchard trees. Each ragged breath carried the crisp scent of leaves and damp earth, but she barely noticed. The echo of that engine revving had stopped as abruptly as it began, leaving only silence and her own footsteps. She parted low branches, scanning for any sign of Henry. Where was he? She pictured him confronting someone by the fence or stumbling into a hidden hollow. The orchard was bigger than she'd remembered, a maze of twisted trunks and rotting fruit. She called his name again, her voice cracking, but only an echo returned. She forced herself onward. The orchard floor felt uneven, littered with fallen branches that snapped beneath her boots. Every so often she glanced behind, irrationally fearing that someone might be following. The hush pressed in on her, intensifying the drumming of her pulse. Then she spotted a fresh set of tire marks gouged into the earth, weaving between two trees. A chill ran through her. These tracks were new, perhaps made earlier that day. She crouched to examine the ruts, noticing how they veered sharply as if the driver had swerved. It wasn't Henry's style to leave such reckless marks. A distant shout jerked her upright. She whipped her head toward the noise, uncertainty flooding her mind. Did it belong to Henry or someone else? Gritting her teeth, Lily pressed forward. The orchard canopy thickened, branches arching overhead to filter the sunlight into dappled patches. She sidestepped a snarl of roots, nearly losing her balance when a twig snapped underfoot. The sudden crack echoed across the orchard, causing her to freeze. For a long moment, she heard nothing but her own pounding heartbeat. Then, as if in answer, another cry rose, a raw, desperate sound that turned her blood cold. She broke into a sprint, ignoring the sting of briars that snagged at her jeans. The winding path seemed endless, each tree trunk a looming silhouette. Her lungs burned and sweat trickled down her neck, but she refused to slow. Somewhere ahead, Henry needed her. She replayed the memory of him leaving that morning, warm coffee in hand, cautioning her not to worry. That tiny scene now felt heartbreakingly distant, overshadowed by dread. The orchard parted at last into a small clearing. Sunlight spilled across a battered old pickup. Henry's truck. Relief surged through her, followed by a fresh wave of alarm. The driver's door stood open, and the engine was silent. Henry was nowhere in sight. Lily circled the truck, hands shaking. The ground was scuffed with footprints. Some belonged to Henry's sturdy boots, but others looked different, wider, heavier, as though made by large work shoes. She found a dropped fence post in the bed, nails scattered as if tossed carelessly aside. Her mind raced. Had Henry confronted trespassers? She scanned the clearing for clues. A broken branch lay near the passenger door, bark peeled away. Then she saw droplets of what might have been blood near the tailgate. Her stomach lurched. Fear pressed in. Lily's throat tightened as she tried to call Henry's name again. The orchard returned only silence. She forced herself to think clearly, to remember that sometimes injuries looked worse than they were. If Henry was hurt, he might have gone searching for help. Then again, the presence of fresh tire marks suggested another vehicle. Could someone have forced him to leave? Her thoughts spiraled. She fished her phone from her pocket, hands trembling, intending to call for help. But the signal bars flickered weakly. She cursed the orchard's spotty reception. Without hesitation, she dialed 911 anyway. The call connected, but the voice on the other end crackled with interference. Lily raised her phone, standing on tiptoe, as if that could strengthen the signal. She managed to give her name, location, and a fractured explanation of the situation before the line cut off. Unsure how much the dispatcher heard, she texted her grandfather's neighbor, Deborah, who was the second best contact in emergencies. Henry missing in orchard, found truck, come help. She pressed send, praying the text would go through. Anxiety twisted inside her. She needed to do something beyond standing there, paralyzed by fear. Gathering courage, Lily picked up the walking stick and followed a faint trail leading deeper into the orchard. The footprints around the truck had suggested multiple people, and the snapped branches pointed to a direction west. She moved cautiously, every rustle of leaves making her heart jump. The orchard's hush felt almost predatory now. Rows of gnarled trunks loomed like silent witnesses, offering no comfort. She thought of Chance back at the farmhouse, alone and likely sensing her distress. That thought spurred her on. She refused to abandon Henry. Inch by inch she advanced, scanning the ground for signs. Rough voices broke the quiet. Lily froze behind the trunk of a stunted apple tree, listening. Two men argued in low tones, words indistinct but tension evident. She dared a peek around the trunk and her pulse thundered. A short distance away, Henry stood pinned between two large men, face pale. One man clutched Henry's arm, twisting it behind his back, while the other gestured angrily to a battered shotgun leaning against a fallen log. Lily swallowed a scream. She saw Henry's grimace, the set of his jaw. This was no petty argument about property lines, it was a confrontation. She stepped back, mind racing. If she rushed in unprepared, she could get Henry hurt. Yet doing nothing felt impossible. The orchard offered limited cover, but branches and tall grass might hide her if she stayed low. Her phone signal had been weak, but she could try again. Lily pressed herself against the trunk, heart hammering. Slowly, she unlocked her phone. Just as she aimed to dial, a low beep indicated the battery was nearly dead. She stifled a curse. Why hadn't she charged it fully? Without reliable communication, she'd have to act on her own or hope someone arrived. Inching forward, Lily clutched the walking stick. The men's argument escalated, words breaking through in jagged snatches. "You said money. Didn't sign up for," one hissed. The other spat. "Shut up, or do you want him squealing to the cops?" Lily's breath caught. Her grandfather stood stoically, refusing to beg. She recognized that stubborn tilt of his chin, the same posture he wore when refusing to let a shady contractor cheat him. The older man with the shotgun glared. Lily's heart pounded. She had to create a diversion, anything that might let Henry escape. Summoning every scrap of courage, she lobbed a small rock. She lobbed a small rock toward the trees behind them, praying the noise would draw their attention. The stone clattered against a trunk, prompting both men to jerk their heads around, weapons tensing. Henry seized the distraction, attempting to yank free of the man's grip. A flurry of movement followed, each second a blur. Lily's stomach flipped. Henry elbowed one man in the ribs, making him curse. The other scrambled for the shotgun. Lily stifled a cry. It all happened so fast. Henry twisted away, stumbling on uneven ground. The man with the gun leveled it in Henry's direction. Without thinking, Lily sprinted from her hiding spot, screaming, "Stop!" Her voice shattered the orchard's hush like lightning through a midnight sky. The armed man paused, startled by the sudden intrusion. Henry dropped to one knee, panting, as Lily dashed between them, arms spread wide in a frantic shield. Her eyes blazed with defiance, though inside she felt terror gripping her spine. The man's finger hovered near the trigger. For one agonizing moment, no one moved. Then with a roar, Henry lunged forward, grappling the barrel of the shotgun. Lily dove aside, rolling behind a tree root. Lily heard a sharp crack reverberate through the orchard as the shotgun fired, sending birds shrieking skyward. Heart pounding, she dove behind a fallen trunk, bracing for pain. But Henry had jerked the gun barrel aside just in time, the shot blasting harmlessly into the branches. Furious, the first assailant staggered back, clutching his shoulder where Henry's elbow connected. The second man lunged, only to catch Lily's walking stick against his ribs, forcing him to gasp for breath. Then came a burst of voices. Deborah and two neighbors emerged, brandishing phones and shouting for peace. Within moments, the men were disarmed, and Henry sagged in relief, Lily rushing to his side. Dust swirled as she knelt, her heart hammering with gratitude. Deborah and the neighbors rushed in with raised voices and firm grips, wrestling the shotgun away and pinning both trespassers against the rough bark of a nearby tree. Lily stood shaking, her eyes locked on Henry's slumped figure. The orchard felt unnaturally quiet in the aftermath, the echo of that single gunshot still ringing in her ears. A scattering of dead leaves fluttered from the branches overhead, drifting across the ground in lazy spirals. Slowly, Lily stepped over broken twigs and half-rotted apples until she knelt beside her grandfather. "Grandpa," she whispered, touching his shoulder. His breathing came in shallow gasps, but he looked up, eyes flicking across her face. Relief flitted in them, followed by concern. She helped him sit upright, noticing scrapes on his arms and dirt smudged across his cheeks. Yet he was alive, saved by a last-second deflection. Deborah hovered close, phone in hand. Another neighbor, Jackson, scowled at the would-be assailants, who still writhed in protest under his watchful glare. Henry let out a shaky breath. "I'm fine," he managed, though his voice trembled. They tried to scare me off. Something about wanting to keep this orchard for their own. Claimed it was abandoned property." Lily's heart pounded. "We have to get you home," she murmured. "You're hurt." He grimaced. "Just bruises, I think. My ribs ache, but I'll manage. Deborah spoke quickly, her phone pressed to her ear. Police are on their way, she said, glaring at the men. One spat on the ground, but neither tried to run. They must have known the orchard's winding rows would offer little refuge with so many witnesses. As Lily helped Henry to his feet, she heard distant sirens cutting through the hush. Anxiety pulsed through her veins, but a wave of relief followed. Soon, real help would arrive, and this terrifying chapter would end. Henry leaned on Lily as they hobbled back toward his truck. Another neighbor kept pace behind them, ensuring the trespassers remained pinned until law enforcement arrived. The orchard's gnarled branches bore silent witness, no doubt having seen countless conflicts over the years. Lily felt unsteady, each step weighed down by the lingering echoes of that shot. She'd never been so close to violence before. Henry clutched his side, wincing, and Lily tried to steady him as best she could. They reached the clearing just as two police cars rolled up with lights flashing. Officers jumped out, guns drawn, though Deborah and Jackson quickly signaled that the men had been disarmed. Within moments, the intruders were cuffed, their shouts muffled by the orchard's persistent hush. An ambulance arrived soon after, and paramedics insisted on examining Henry. He waved them off at first, but Lily's pleading look made him comply. While they checked his vitals, Lily explained in halting words what had happened. Henry had come to fix the fence and found these men prowling around. A confrontation had ensued, culminating in that single echoing shot. Watching the paramedics wrap Henry's arm in a makeshift bandage for some nasty bruising, Lily felt a burst of gratitude that she had come searching. If she'd stayed home, who knew how the standoff might have ended? Once Henry was cleared for release, his injuries labeled minor but painful, an officer took Lily's statement. Her answers felt jumbled, adrenaline still thick in her veins. Yet she managed to describe everything: hearing an engine, discovering Henry's truck, that desperate confrontation. Finally, the officer allowed them to go home. The orchard, once a place of promise, now felt tainted. Lily glanced over her shoulder as they drove away, wincing at the memory of gunfire. Henry sat stiffly in the passenger seat, letting Deborah drive his battered truck. Lily followed in the neighbor's car. When they arrived at the farmhouse, the late afternoon sun slanted across the yard, and Lily realized how thoroughly exhausted she felt. She leapt from the vehicle, ignoring her own bruised knees, and sprinted inside. Chance lay by the window, ears perked in anxious anticipation. The moment Lily appeared, he scrambled up, tail wagging in frantic relief. She scooped him into her arms, pressing her face into his fur as tears finally welled. "It's okay," she whispered, stroking his back. "We're home." Henry, assisted by Deborah, limped into the living room. He dropped into the armchair, wincing. Lily set Chance down and rushed to her grandfather's side. "We need to ice your ribs," she insisted, voice still shaking. The paramedics might have cleared him, but Lily remained worried. Henry mustered a faint smile. "I'll be fine, Lil. You saved my skin out there." Deborah gently squeezed Henry's shoulder. "I'll fetch some ice from the freezer," she offered, retreating toward the kitchen. Chance, uneasy about the tense atmosphere, padded forward on his stiff leg. With measured steps, he sniffed Henry's boots as if to confirm he was the same gentleman the dog had come to trust. Satisfied, he nudged Henry's hand, offering silent comfort. Lily sank to her knees, tears slipping free. Relief crashed over her, mingled with lingering terror at how close they'd come to tragedy. Henry placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. "It's over now," he whispered. "The cops have them. We'll sort out the orchard fence later." She nodded, inhaling unsteady breaths. Chance crept nearer, leaning his head into Lily as though sensing her distress. She buried her face in his soft fur, letting the pup's warmth anchor her. Deborah returned with ice wrapped in a towel, handing it to Henry. "You want me to stay a while?" she asked quietly. Henry shook his head, a hint of gratitude in his gaze. I appreciate it, but we'll be fine. Lily can manage, and I'd like to rest. Deborah patted his arm, cast Lily a concerned look, then slipped out with a soft goodbye. Outside, the setting sun draped the fields in gold, and Lily realized how long the day had stretched. Chance followed her every movement as she helped Henry prop his leg on a stool, settling the ice pack gingerly against his side. Henry exhaled a weary sigh. "They wanted me off that land," he said at last, voice tinged with bitterness. "Claimed we had no right to fence it. Probably planned to strip the orchard of whatever they could find and sell it." Lily's thoughts drifted to rumors of people dumping dogs or stealing supplies from neglected properties. A swirl of anger rose. "How could anyone do that?" she murmured. Henry tried a wry smile. "Some folks never see beyond their own gain. Nothing to do but face them head on, though I sure didn't expect gunfire." Lily suppressed a shudder, hugging her arms around herself. Chance pressed close to Henry's chair, as if offering silent reassurance. The old man's expression softened. "I see the same spirit in you that you show caring for him," Henry said, nodding toward the puppy. "You rushed in, did something brave. Risky, but brave." Lily blinked away the tears that threatened to fall anew. The last few hours felt surreal, a whirlwind of worry, confrontation, and relief. She couldn't shake the memory of the orchard's gloom. If the orchard once symbolized decay and neglect, now it stood for something else, a place where she'd proven her own capacity for courage. With time, maybe they could reclaim it, just as they were reclaiming Chance's life from the brink. By dusk, the farmhouse settled into a quieter routine. Henry dozed in the armchair, the ice pack replaced once by Lily. Chance, worn out from tension, curled on his blankets, occasionally peeking to ensure Henry remained safe. Lily brewed chamomile tea, trying to quell her frazzled nerves. She realized how deeply she craved normalcy. A simple night, the soft hum of radio music, maybe a game of checkers with Henry. Instead, the day had rattled them both in ways neither could ignore. When Henry stirred awake, he beckoned Lily over. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he said, voice heavy. "Sometimes the world is cruel, but Lil, you did right by me." She swallowed, nodding. "I couldn't just wait," she whispered. "Everything you do for me, for the farm, for Chance, I had to make sure you were okay." Henry looked at her with such profound gratitude that Lily felt her chest tighten. He reached for her hand. "When I first found you as a baby, took you in after your parents' troubles, I always hoped you'd grow up with a kind heart. You've got more than that. You've got real courage." His words sank into her soul, dissolving the tight knot of fear that still lingered. She squeezed his hand and managed a small smile. "Thanks, Grandpa." Rising, she turned to tend to Chance. The puppy gazed up, ears pricked, tail thumping with relief. She beckoned him closer. Gently, she ran her fingers over his fur. "It was a scary day," she told him, "but we'll be okay now." Night fell with little fanfare, the sky cloudless. Even the cicadas seemed subdued, as though the orchard's turmoil had left the entire land in hushed reflection. Lily shared a simple meal of bread and soup with Henry, coaxing him to eat despite his sore ribs. Chance rested his chin on Lily's foot, soaking up the comforting presence of his humans. Henry occasionally grimaced, adjusting his position with a wince. But at least the immediate danger had passed. Before bed, Lily helped Henry to his room. Though he insisted he could manage, she hovered at his elbow, guiding him gently. She placed extra pillows on his mattress, remembering the paramedic's advice that a partially upright position might lessen pain. He lay back with a tired sigh, wincing only a little. Lily flicked on the small lamp by his bedside, the warm glow tracing gentle shadows on the wallpaper. "If you need anything, just call," she reminded, voice soft. She returned to the living room, where Chance waited. Although she wanted to collapse onto the couch, her mind churned restlessly. Today's events underscored how precarious safety could be. Lily yearned for that sense of untroubled calm they'd had only days ago. But now a different resilience coursed through her. Perhaps it was the orchard's harsh lesson, or maybe it was the knowledge that she'd stepped beyond her own fears for Henry's sake. Gazing at Chance, Lily knelt to smooth the bedding around him. "Do you know how special you are?" she whispered, the hush of evening settling. He blinked, licking her hand, as though offering comfort in turn. "All that trouble out there. It's why people like Grandpa and me take it upon ourselves to look after the vulnerable." The pup made a small noise, a gentle affirmation. At last, Lily lay down on the couch, too drained to undress fully. Chance patted over, pawing gently until she lifted him to lie against her. The house was silent. Through the window, the moon's glow illuminated the edges of furniture. Lily breathed slow, letting the puppy's warmth ease the lingering knots of tension in her body. Perhaps tomorrow the orchard would carry on, battered yet still rooted in the land, and they would too, forging forward into each sunrise with a renewed sense of what truly mattered. Henry's soft snores drifted from his bedroom, reassuring Lily that he slept despite the day's ordeal. Chance yawned, settling deeper into the crook of her arm, no sign of pain in his healing leg. The hush folded around them, accompanied by a gentle breeze outside that whispered across the porch. Lily closed her eyes, letting relief wash over every bruise, every scare. They had survived. The orchard was no longer just a place of tangled branches and rotted fruit. It was a reminder that when people stand up for what they love, hope endures. Somewhere in Lily's half-doze, she imagined a future day, perhaps months from now, when Chance would race through the orchard at full speed, strong legs carrying him across dappled sunlight. Henry would stand tall at the fence, proud grin on his face. She would run behind the dog, laughter echoing through the trees. The orchard's shadows would be dispelled by that unstoppable spirit they all shared, the same resilience that had saved them today. It was a fragile vision, but as Lily sank into sleep, she held it close, believing in it more fiercely than ever before.